I'm not gonna lie, I could get used to these meetings from home.
Oh, no question.
I'm the opposite.
So Nicole, let me know when we're ready up and running.
Yep.
We're
Give
good.
us a
We're
minute.
We're okay?
Oh.
Okay, perfect. I'd like to welcome everybody and call the meeting to order. I have the adoption and, well, actually, I guess we need to take roll call first. Morgan Brown.
Here.
Jeff Bittner.
Here.
Christina Shark.
Here.
Nancy Manson.
Here.
Brian Jones.
Here.
Jeremy Weller.
Here.
David Waberner is here. Adoption of agenda and declaration of a quorum.
Motion to adopt.
Second, Bittner.
Jones Bittner.
Further discussion? All in favor? Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
Yes.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
Yes.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller,
Yes.
David Waberner's a yes. Look like we go to the next one, reports, National Education Week, which I know Nancy brought this up last week, but Nicole, do you have some things that you want to address on this?
Yeah, I just
Teacher.
want to publicly be able to thank teachers a minute, just because last week wasn't a regularly scheduled meeting. So this past week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and as always, our educators are deserving of many thanks and appreciation. This year, our teachers have had to get extremely creative in ways to engage, educate, and empower their students. Online Zoom sessions, creative at-home science experiments, and the development of weekly activities are just some of the ways our educators are going above and beyond to serve our students in non-traditional ways. Teachers in Ottumwa and all over the U.S. are working hard to keep their pupils engaged while education during a difficult time in our country and our nation. It's in these challenges times we truly recognize and appreciate our nation's educators play a pivotal role in our children's lives by inspiring lifelong learning and discovery and making a difference in every child's well-being and long-term success. Teachers today and every day, thank you for your service, dedication, and inspiration. You make a difference in the lives of our students, and your work is greatly appreciated. And I just want to sincerely thank all of our staff that are out there working really hard to keep students and families engaged at this time. Even though it's extremely trying, they're doing a fabulous job.
Thank you. I would echo that. Thank you, all teachers and all staff. Definitely tough times. Anyone else have anything you want to say on National Education Week?
Just so we appreciate them, everything they do for us and the kids.
Agree. Next item is School Board Appreciation Month. Pat yourself on the back month, I guess.
Pat yourself on the back month. I'm sorry this is so impersonal through a Zoom session, but I do have certificates that I'll send out to you guys. But I just want everybody to know this is a great time to celebrate school board members and educate the public on the important role school board members play in our community and our schools. Although showing appreciation should be a year-round process, taking advantage of this designated time assures that these important people are acknowledged and recognized. And I want to take this opportunity to formally thank you as school board members for the service that you provide. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for serving our children and our communities. It's really appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Nicole.
Moving on to discussion items. Number one on the list, the custodial plan to return, which I think everybody has a schedule, at least with most of the schools, or maybe all the schools, it looks like. Is this?
So those are some tentative things, Dave, that Chuck has put in place, and he would like, honestly, if the board's approving of it, for custodians to be able to start up tomorrow with still social distancing parameters and rotations and so forth in place, but he'd like to be able to utilize any and all custodians back if he can.
So that would be in addition, I assume, to what is listed in the attachment?
That would be correct.
Okay. Anyone have questions, discussion around any of that?
Yeah, it just, I got a question, Dave. So, and it just now came to me. So it looks like, so these guys will be there working in each school basically in their time slotted, but they'll be by themselves. Is that correct?
They'll be either by themselves or they'll be in a location where they're not in close proximity with any other custodians or staff members.
Right. My only question would be is that I'm good with it, other than I always like somebody else being there just in case something would to happen to somebody, they can check on them. You know what I mean? That not necessarily in the same room, but, and God forbid anything happen, we don't ever see that. But if somebody was to ever go down or fall over in a school or something like that, and they're the only one there in their time slot, it'd be several hours for somebody to get there. So I don't know if that's, I know maybe we don't think it's a huge deal, but I don't know if that's something we should look at, you think, or I don't know. I just came to mind just about 5 minutes ago. So it's up to you guys.
I can definitely relay that information to Chuck and make sure he has their schedule of when they're going to be at each location, so he can make sure people are checking that everybody's safe.
Okay.
I mean, our smaller buildings anyway, typically only have one person in it in the evenings anyway. So I'm okay with what he's got proposed here tonight.
Okay. I didn't realize they only had one in them at night. So
Yeah,
that's fine.
But I know the elementaries are.
Okay. Okay. I'm good with it then.
And our plan is to continue to utilize them for mowing and those outdoor tasks as well right now, instead of course, hiring, summer temporary workers. We're going to plan on keeping them on rotation because we can do that at the same time if the board's approving of that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't think we need to hire seasonal workers if we have, extra custodians that can do that. That'd be great.
I move that we adopt the recommendation to bring back the custodians as the plan is given.
It's just a discussion item, Nancy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, never mind.
That's okay. But no, I think that's kind of showing Nicole, obviously, or
Nicole, move forward. Sorry about that.
Does anybody else have any thoughts or questions on that? Nope. All right. So looks like next one on the list, summer sports, board's thoughts. It looks like we have Scott Moss to address on this.
Yeah, thanks for giving me a few minutes tonight. I just wanted to bring you up to speed with a possibility for softball and baseball this summer. The latest word we've been getting from the Iowa High School Athletic Association, the Girls Union, is that we won't know anything, won't have any more information till June 1st. And at that time, there's a possibility that we might be able to play starting on June 15th. The reason I wanted to address the board tonight is that it sounds like in some conversations with other ADs in the CIML and around the state that some school districts might be choosing to or opting to not play, even if the state gives us the go-ahead to play, or to play and place further restrictions on their teams as far as travel or number of people in the stands, or there's a lot of different possibilities there. I thought it'd be a good idea to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as if we get the go-ahead on June 1st to play, what we're planning on doing. My personal opinion is just to follow whatever the state gives us for guidelines. If they say we can start playing on June 15th, and they may place further restrictions on number of people in the stands, or I really don't know what they might be, but to just follow whatever the state gives us and not place any further restrictions on our squads. It's going to be a challenge scheduling wise. I think each conference is just going to put together a conference schedule for baseball and softball, and we won't have a lot of non-conference games. I'm sort of guessing that the metro schools that we're included with may choose to not play or may choose to have further restrictions based on what their district is, how they've been responding to this crisis so far. So our schedule will be a lot different than it normally is. I don't have any idea. I have a CIML ADs meeting tomorrow morning. And before that meeting, I wanted to just touch base with you guys and see if your feelings are any different than mine as far as, hey, whatever the state allows us to do, I'm sure they're going to be using the guidelines given to them from the experts, and that's what we should follow. I don't think it's necessary to place any further restrictions on our teams.
I agree with you, Scott. I think we should follow the state's lead on this one.
I would agree with Scott. To your knowledge, Scott, nobody's dropped out yet though, right? I mean, just on their own.
No, not officially. I just,
Okay.
I hear talk from other ADs
Sure.
about, are we going to play? Aren't we going to play? Are we going to be restricted on where we can travel to? What part of the state we can or can't go to? Those are all the hurdles we're going to have to jump as those things come up. But I know tomorrow morning in our CIML meeting, we're going to try to put together a tentative schedule based on June 15th. I just wanted to make sure the board was okay with, hey, if we can start playing, then that's when that's when we'll start playing, unless you guys feel differently.
Yeah, Scott, I would thank you for your time tonight. I would say I absolutely agree with everything you've said. If we get a chance to play, we should play. I personally think every kid of every age should play baseball and softball this summer. So I really, really am still hoping that it's going to work out for us. So thank you for your time, and I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I echo all the statements. The state's going to let us play, we play.
The only other question, it's sort of a related matter, I guess, that occurred to me today is summertime. Almost every varsity coach has some kind of camp, clinic, different things going on in the summertime, and as well as our summer strength and conditioning program. I guess in the back of my mind, I'm thinking if baseball and softball open up on June 15th, that maybe that's the date we can use to also start getting kids in the weight room, on the track, in the gym, and doing those things this summer. So I also, I guess, wanted to touch base with you to see if that's how you felt about that, or maybe, some people might feel like playing baseball and softball is different than having 30 or 40 kids in the weight room. Obviously, coaches are bothering me every day about, hey, when can we start getting kids in the gym? When can we start getting kids in the weight room? I know the kids are wanting to go. I guess I'd like to know our feelings on that. I'm kind of thinking that if the state puts out guidance to us on June 1st on baseball and softball, they'll also give us guidance on summertime, other summertime activities, camps, clinics, open gyms, weightlifting, those kinds of things.
Scott, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that had came to me when I was looking over this, that I get asked a lot also about the summer programs outside of baseball and softball. My personal opinion would be that if we do open back up for baseball, softball, and those things are able to get off the ground, unless there's something else that would hinder 30 or 40 kids being together in the weight room or around the track, I would be okay with starting at the same time.
I would hope they'd give us some guidance, and I think they will. I think they'll address all those things.
I'm going to be the outlier and just give you another slope on this. I think if you take a big step back, again, these are unprecedented times, and you know, I'm all about sports and supported all that, but this is a blip in the lives of these kids, and I think we still don't have this sorted out. And instead of saying instead of finding a way to do the non-essential things, I say, what can we do without? I mean, instead of how can we support doing this? Like, well, what can we get by without doing? Because, you know, it could be some serious consequences. And, you know, because the state makes big decisions doesn't mean they're always right. So my opinion is, if it's not essential, we shouldn't be doing them. And that's just from my side of the fence, from things that I've seen and I've heard and I've seen. So I am not for doing that at this time.
Jeff, you're talking about the weight room?
No, I'm talking about all of it. I'm talking about, I mean, is baseball and softball and the weight room, all that, is it essential? I don't think so. You can do without it if it could potentially save you a life-threatening problem. That's my opinion, and that's my life. That's what I deal with every day. But it's a board. I understand that, and I respect.
Sure.
I respect everybody. It's a tough place to be, and I respect everybody's opinion. But again, I think it's bigger than a sport.
Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I'll just, thank you, Jeff, for that. And I respect your medical standpoint. I'll just side with Jeremy real quick. As from a parent and from a board member, I do think sports are essential. It's good for their mental health. It's good for their physical health. I think if the state gives us guidance, especially to play an outdoor sport, I do think it's essential. And I think we should start all of it as soon as possible. June 1st, June 15th, whatever the state says is okay. I hope that we follow suit with that. I do think it's essential for these kids' mental health for the summer. The things that they've lost socially and mentally, being out of school for 6 months is detrimental, and they need to get back with their friends, and they need to get back into their activities as soon as possible.
Just taking a guess at it, I would guess that because we've heard multiple times from both the boys and girls associations that they have no interest in extending the seasons into August, that they want to have things done. They might extend things a week later for softball so that the state softball and baseball season or tournaments would be the same week, but that they wouldn't look to go beyond that, because once we get into August, hopefully, you know, we're starting football, volleyball, cross country, golf, swimming, those things. So my guess is that on June 1st, we either hear they're going to give us a go ahead to play beginning June 15th, or we won't have a season. I don't think they would shorten it down any more than that. Try to have that's just a guess, but I'm guessing it's either going to be June 15th or it's going to be nothing.
So it sounds like I can put that as an action item on an upcoming meeting when we know more information, and whether the state's going to open that up and put it for a board vote as of right now for May 26th, unless we have a meeting before then. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yeah, I would like to think we would know, well, hopefully we'd know more by May 26th, but yeah, that sounds fine. Everybody good with that?
Yep, good.
Any other questions for Scott?
I guess just real quickly, Dave, this is just kind of maybe a procedural question, but why does it have to be an action item later if the governor gives us okay this week to go ahead and go back to sports? Why does it need to be an action item?
I don't know if it's a need to be to an extent, but maybe it should be, because I think every school district is going to vote on what's best for their school district. You know, I think the same as what kind of when the governor gave the option or the mandate that school was closed until April 30th and then extended it to the end of the year, where we went ahead and voted and adopted what the governor said. I think it's kind of similar. You know, I think with what we've talked about, you know, I think it's pretty safe to say, at least I heard from the majority of the board, not necessarily all the board, but the majority of the board that, you know, would favor doing this. So I don't know what's going to change in that world at the end of the month. However, we may have more information as to what those seasons may look like or what else is allowed for the summer. So it doesn't have to be one, probably not. But I think every school district right now, maybe it's not a terrible thing to be on record saying it's, you know, we'll accept that and go ahead. But that's just my opinion. Like I said, it doesn't have to be one. Anything else for Scott? Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
So next on the list, Prom, looks like discussion recommendation from Public Health and Emergency Management.
So I know I sent you guys some information on this, but right now prom, they said, is very different even from graduation, because you can't do social distancing at a prom dance and what that looks like. So they said for date wise, they don't foresee in anywhere in the near future that we could possibly have a prom. That doesn't mean that the board can't say, hey, schedule a date for July and see if it works or not. But we haven't told the kids anything. We haven't told, you know, a lot of schools have said there's not having prom this year. I think we need to make some type of decision or set a date in July and see if we can have it. And if we can't, we just don't have prom for the year. And I know there'll be a lot of students that are disappointed, but I think everybody's kind of waiting on a decision here. And right now it'd be impossible to have a prom.
I thought we talked at our last meeting about 2 dates, one in June and one in July. What happened to that?
We did, Jeremy, but then I put our plan to Public Health and Wapello Emergency Management and the Department of Ed, and all of their recommendations were to not do it. So, and again, I think July could look different. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know if June will look that different at this point, but we could still keep those dates if the board wants and push them out. And if everything's fine, still have them. And if they're not, we just won't have a prom.
Nicole, did you ask them to come to this meeting tonight?
Yes, but they are not coming, but I put a position statement on the graduation that was from them that they shared out with all schools. And just got it this afternoon.
Okay, and I have a question just about procedural kinds of things, because I really don't understand how this works, but it's my understanding the governor's emergency declaration for Iowa as of right now is slated to end May 27th. And we can argue all day long about whether or not it should be extended, that was enough time. But what is the jurisdiction that Wapello County Emergency Management has on this school district after May 27th, or Wapello County Public Health after May 27th? I'm having trouble connecting why we need to ask either permission or blessing or recommendations for activities that happen in July from those two groups. And I just don't know where that jurisdiction is at.
So it's a great question. And I asked for the format of who trumps who in decision-making. The governor is making those recommendations, and it is only through May 27th. But what they're saying is for safety reasons is what's currently happening in Wapello County, that their recommendations doesn't mean we would need to follow them. If the governor says on May 27th, that's the last day and things open up, I think that looks very different. They do not believe that that will happen. So based on what they know in their guidance, they're recommending for safety reasons, whether we proceed with some of the plans we had or not. I also reached out to our insurance carrier just to see what they cover if, for example, some type of outbreak occurs at an event we have. And that language I placed in the board agenda under graduation as well. So I think you guys as a board can say anything past May 27th right now. You can set those dates. I just think we got to be careful because they're saying that most likely in June is not going to be feasible. I, again, don't know. I know you guys don't know. But from the Department of Ed, they said, make sure you're working with your Wapello, well, they didn't say Wapello, public health, and make sure you're working with emergency management before you communicate out those plans and the Department of Ed. So I'm just following procedures recommended and giving you guys the feedback that I receive and the guidance.
I guess from my perspective, it's hard to imagine right now us going back to school in the fall, but does that mean we just throw our hands up and cancel school next year too? I don't see the harm in setting a date and then reassessing as we get closer to that date. And it's always easier to plan once you have a date. So I don't see any problem with setting a date for it in July or further down the road. And if, you know, come July, things aren't looking better, you can always cancel it. I just don't see the harm in setting a date, I guess.
Yeah, and I know they have the dates reserved at least for prom at Bridgeview. I don't know the dates off the top of my head, but I do know they have a couple, and I kind of agree. You know, we don't know, like I said, the odds probably are against us. Don't disagree of being able to have it, but on the flip side, you know, I think with the state and the governor, if they release to open, you know, maybe it can't be prom as we know it, but maybe it can be something else. I don't know. But, you know, I don't know. I don't think just because the local, you know, Wapello County Emergency Management, you know, they're right in telling us we can't do it right now because we're under the governor's orders. So they're accurate in that. But if we're not under governor's orders, then you know, that's not necessarily true. They don't have the control for us on that. And, you know, I think it's about working with them, not against them. And it's easy to say no right now. It's easy to say no to everything. You know, we could sit on here and go through this meeting in about 25 minutes and just vote no to a lot of stuff that involves things, but tough decisions, it's what we're sitting here to do. And I agree. I don't think we should cancel prom at this point in time. I'm a realist and understand that it's a long shot probably, but why not have that chance? You know, at least if we have the date, I know they already have them reserved. It's no extra work in anybody, my opinion.
So just so you guys know, as a board as well, I shared those, that's how this came out. So before we pushed out the communication, I shared the prom plan with the dates, not of course in May, but in June and July. Same with virtual graduation, June, July, August dates. And that's when they responded back with, you know, that was not a good idea based on what's happening currently in Wapello County. I think, like you said, we can push out the dates. We can do that tomorrow. And if it's not safe and the governor says things are still shut down, we just don't have it. And we tell kids this is a long shot, but these are the tentative dates at this point.
Yeah, and that's what they are. They are tentative dates for that and, you know, graduation both. So, I mean, I'm kind of in favor of keeping the tentative dates. At least that's, yeah. Anybody else, any guidance?
I know I talked to you about this earlier, Dave, but I just wondered, can we have an idea about how long it would, if she lifts restrictions, how long would it take to set up something at the stadium to have graduation? Does anybody know on that? Is it a day, you think?
We can talk about the graduation later, Brian, in the agenda, if that's all right.
Sure.
And so we can get prom out of the way. If that works for you.
I'm good.
So in lifting restrictions, I don't think she's gonna go from 10 to being able to have thousands of people within a small proximity. So just so you guys, our return to learn plan that we got Friday from the Department of Ed has 3 models we have to be ready for. And one of them is a full online required learning. One of them is a hybrid plan of online learning and face-to-face. And the third one is face-to-face, but face-to-face during a COVID. So they're saying school will not look like school has in the past. And they're saying to plan for an environment, even with face-to-face, of groups of 10 in a classroom or less. So when you ask, you know, are we preparing for school? We are, but we're preparing for school to look very, very different in the fall. And there's a 40-page guidance document, and you can probably see the whiteboard behind of all the plans and procedures and things we're going to have to change in order to do this well for students in the future. And those are the only free options they're giving us for August. So they're not planning on school looking like typical school. And I know Jeff, as a doctor in the profession, you probably hear and know more about this, but I don't think this is magically going to be over. So I wish it was in the next month or 2 or 3.
No, it's not.
The thing that has me the most concerned about scheduling prom is that I know some of the things have already been bought for prom, but some of the things have not. And so therefore, additional expense may occur that doesn't necessarily have to. If I don't think there's any possible way that we can have a June prom. I think the absolute earliest is July, and I think that one looks pretty shaky anyway. So I think that if I was going to reserve a date, I would only reserve one. And I don't anticipate that even occurring.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be hopeful because she's lifting more and more restrictions every week. So I'm just trying to be hopeful that we
Right.
get something lifted by June or towards the end of June or July.
I would be fine with a prom in July. I agree with Nancy. I'm not sure June would make sense for that type of activity. While I think graduation and baseball are fine in June, that's very, very different than prom. But I think July is very doable.
The problem with the other problem with prom in July is that the seniors have already graduated, and therefore, if you have any type of problems at prom, you always held graduation as the if there's a problem, then you will not walk graduation. Well, being they've already graduated, I am a little bit concerned about conduct at prom.
That's a good point.
So I did put this as an action item, but I really feel like we need I need to know where the board's just going, because we need to communicate something out to families and students. I'm getting lots of emails.
I'd like
I
to
agree,
just stick with
Nancy.
the
I
tentative
think
dates.
that, yeah, I agree. Nancy, I suppose that's always a possibility, but you're talking about a pretty small minority group of kids, and I would hate for that to be the reason you hold up hundreds of kids possibly attending prom because you're worried about a fight of a couple of them. I say we go ahead with a tentative date in July and make sure people understand that it's of course tentative depending on how this thing progresses.
But you know, on one hand, we're saying we're going to go by the governor's recommendation, but on the other hand, we're saying, well, but sports is okay, or prom is okay, and you know, we're making our own decisions. Either it's kind of all or none. Either she says it's okay and we follow that, or we make our own decisions on everything.
I don't think we ever recommended going against the state's recommendations on sports. We said to follow the state's lead, or I did anyway. And
Yeah.
if they haven't lifted restrictions to where, you know, if we're still at a 10-person maximum, then we can't have baseball, obviously. So I wouldn't advise having baseball if we're still under that restriction, because as a district, I think we'd be in violation of the mandate.
I'm
So
fine
we're
with setting a
still-
date. I'm fine
Yeah,
with
we're-
setting a date and seeing what
Right.
happens.
We're
Yeah.
still at their mercy, and yeah, we can set a date. And if, you know, 2 weeks before we're still at a 10-person maximum, it's obviously probably not going to happen. And I don't advocate that we do it.
Yeah.
Nicole, set it. I would suggest that you set a date in July.
They have a date set.
Okay,
Yeah.
then let's,
They have a date set. They have it reserved at Bridgeview. They have had for a while.
okay, then let's go. Then let's go with that date.
Yeah, and I
As a
would,
tenant,
you know,
yeah.
maybe instruct them, you know, obviously, as Nancy pointed out earlier, maybe you don't want to go buy anything that doesn't, that can't be saved until maybe next year or something like that, just in case it's not used. But,
Too late.
you know, ultimately, they've had a reservation for a while. So we're really, I mean, I guess if I'm getting this right, we're either for keeping the reservation and crossing your fingers, or we're going to cancel it and tell them prom's canceled. And I'm not for canceling at this point yet.
So what I'm hearing is keep the July date in place, and if it can happen in July, it happens, and if it can't, it can't.
Yeah, we'll know a lot more
Yes.
about it long before July 18th. I think that's the date, actually.
Okay.
Okay. So next item, Ray and Associates Superintendent.
Hello, I'm Dale Monroe, and I'm so happy to see all of you. I wish I were in the room with you, but we understand we're dealing with the same problems here that you are. And so just 2 or 3 things, and then we'll get started because I know you have a longer agenda. The purpose of tonight is, first of all, to thank you for picking Ray and Associates. We've been at this a long time. This is about my 25th or 26th superintendent search. I've been a 40-year veteran of administrative jobs throughout the state of Iowa, big, small, rural, and around the town. I also have been involved in business as well. The purposes of tonight's meeting is to shore up about 3 things. First of all, I want to make sure that we have a schedule that meets your need, because I watched your last board meeting and I knew you had concerns about 2 things. One, the shortness of time between now and July 1st. The second, and equality candidates. The second thing was potential of an interim being in the picture at some point. And so I put together a schedule that I want to share with you that will do 2 things. It will tell you the procedures that we follow. Some of them you already read in the proposal, but you'll get more details on them tonight. The second thing I want to do is come up with a schedule that you think is appropriate and gives you the option of exploring both interim as quality candidates. And then the second thing that we have to do is we have to talk about how much involvement you want from your community and how we go about doing that. And there's a couple options. I sent you a 33 characteristics piece, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then finally, if we go forward with advertising, which we should, what would be the best options for you to pursue? Because as I mentioned, this is a fairly short schedule that we're on. I want to do the best job we possibly can for you. That being said, I'm going to start into the schedule a little bit. Does that kind of get the highlights, Dave, of things that you want to be talking about tonight?
Yep, sounds great.
Okay, so I'll dive into that, but feel free to interrupt. When we get to a point, you say that again, or tell me how that works. I'll be glad to answer as many questions as I can. First of all, if you pull up the superintendent search, it says modified process. I had that sent to you today. I'm hoping you all got that.
Yep.
I see heads nodding. That's great. So let me just walk you through the stages. If you look down the left-hand side of that page, there are 5 stages that we go through. Obviously, we're preparing with you tonight and preparing for the search. But stage 2 is where we develop a profile and take the process to the next step, and then recruit like crazy. And I'll talk to you about that and how we screen. And then finally, the stage where you get to meet the candidates in a couple different options, and we'll provide those options for you. And then of course, stage 5 is how you involve the community in that end interview if you want. And again, these are all things that you have to kind of give me some guidance on. I'll ask you for a motion toward the end of our conversation that covers 2 or 3 things that you agree that you want to do. But I want to make it very clear up front that I work for you. I don't work for the candidates. And so one of the things that we think sets us apart is, and I've told this to lots of other school boards, my basement doesn't have 25 candidates in they're waiting for me to call their number and come to Ottumwa to interview. We go out with every search and we start new, just like I'm going to describe to you. And we put together a recruiting effort that matches your qualifications and your needs. I hope that makes sense. So let's dive into it. So tonight we're talking about what we're going to do. I have all of your contact information that John sent to me, and I would like you to provide a time for me between now and Friday, about 30 minutes to 40 minutes, where I can call you one-on-one and do a board interview. The board interview consists of what's the best things about the community, what's the best things about the school, what are the biggest issues that are facing you in the upcoming year, what will be the first thing that superintendent would have to deal with coming in, and then we get into specifics about, are there some people you'd like us to contact? Are there some people internal that you'd like to have? And then we get into some details about what questions do you want us to make sure that the persons can answer before we recruit them. And those will be things that I'll do with each of you individually, and then I'll compile all of that information under a board information packet. The individual comments, they will not be public because sometimes I get real detailed information from board members that can't be public. It's under state law that you don't have to publicize that because of HR requirements. So I'll do that with each of you individually. So at the end, I'll say, is there a time to get a hold of you and to meet with you in the next 2 to 3 days? The second part then is we want to collect and create a promotional flyer. I pulled the fast facts off of your website, and I talked a little bit with John. He has somebody, I think he says, internally that does communication. And so we might work with that person. We will actually design a brochure that you have to approve, a brochure that has your fast facts on it. It talks about your community, some of the things that the board gives me, and then it'll talk about the 10 qualifications that you hold most dearly. I'll talk about how we get to that in 1 second. Those 10 qualifications are related to the survey that I'm going to ask you about in a second. We also, in part of that, would collect from stakeholder groups, teacher groups, administrators, parent groups. We do coaches, we do student groups, and we do focus groups with them that are about an hour long, face to face. That's probably not going to be very good at this moment to do that. So one of the alternatives that I used in 2 of the districts I work with lately is we have the 33 characteristics. You see that second document that's on your that's in your link that you got. Those are written by a man named Marzano, who takes good ideas and makes them work. And so he's put those 33 characteristics together based upon his research. Happens to be an Iowa boy who moved to Colorado, so I trust his research. We asked people to take a look at those, and one of the things I'd ask you on your board one-to-one is, would you fill out that sheet and email it to me with your 10? We do that with every subgroup that you have too, and in fact, we put it out on the website, and we pushed it out via social media in the last 2 districts I had, and because people are home, they pay attention to it if you alert them and say, hey, you need to fill this out. We want the superintendent to be your choice. And then we compile that and we put it together as, this is what the parents' top 10 are. This is what the students' top 10, the teachers' top 10, administrators, board, on and on and on, central office. We put them all together. And then we say, if we look at all the commonalities between those, here are the top 10 that we would recommend that you put in your final qualifications to sort the applications by. So I'm jumping a little bit ahead. So if by Friday I met with all of you and I've got kind of what you're looking for, you're hired by or you're chosen by your constituents to kind of hire the superintendent. So I'd use your comments and I'd use your results to finish that brochure. And the brochure would say, here are the qualifications in general we're looking for. Because I won't be able to get all of them done for your community by Friday. I would push it out, talk to John about pushing it out tomorrow, collect as many as we can, and within about a week or 10 days, I need to get back with you as a board or your representatives, if you choose to do it that way, and say, yep, the brochure does what we want. It could be the communication person working with our office, and then I understand that Dave and John are kind of the representatives for the board and for the district. You could give them the authority to approve it. We'd make sure everybody saw it, and make any comments you want, but then in the end, ask for approval. That's one option that we have. And in light of not being able to do stakeholder groups, I guess I would encourage you to think about that. So we collect that information then. Oh, and then back up. When you do get board approval, I'd be glad to meet with you as a group for 15, 20 minutes. I'll share all that results with you so you can see the qualifications that people are saying is approval. We'll also have to talk about salary at that time. And maybe you've done some preliminary work with that, but we usually do a survey of all the school districts about your size and bring them in to you and say, here's kind of what we think the pay range should look like. And then we can talk about that. But you maybe have some ideas too. I don't know what John's done in the area of that study or at all. We didn't talk about that today. So long story short, tomorrow, what will happen is I will notify all my associates. There's about 200 of it, 200 Dale Monroes across the state, a nation, and there's a few in each state, and I'll notify them that Ottumwa has a position open for superintendent. It's on the modified process. We're going to push it fast. I need to know people who have, and then I'll tell them the qualifications will come more clearly on Friday, so I can send them out to them. So they'll start thinking about the school district. I'll send them the fact sheet that's out on your website. I'll get them hooked to the link. We'll get them started right away. So I'm not going to waste much time waiting for all the surveys to come back, nor do I want to spend any more time waiting for us to get through all of our interviews. But I want to get them out, get people starting to think about who they might know that would be interested in this position. So then tomorrow we put out that survey link. I'd suggest that you leave it open about 8 days. So we're going to keep it open until the 20th. On the 20th, we would collect that up, and then the office would compile all that. And it looks like you have a board meeting on what, the 25th? Is that what you said?
Right.
The 25th, we could do 5, 10, 15 minutes. I could take you through all that data. We could finalize everything with the qualifications that you're going to have me and yourselves screen those applications with, and we'll talk about that next. Questions about the first phase? I'm going kind of fast, but all right. Second stage. So then we get this abbreviated promotional flyer out tomorrow. The board representatives, I'll meet with you and we'll talk about the profile, and I put the 15th down. We can change that time, but then we would print the promotional flyer. We put it on your website and our website, and that goes out to our website, which you'll hear about later. We have 5,000 hits a month in a normal time. Now, I'm not sure this is normal, but it's certainly one time that we are going to push it real hard and see if we can get it out in front of people. Then beginning with the promotion of that flyer and the application, which, by the way, we have an application that covers all the requirements in all 50 states. And so I would ask you to let us use our application. It has things on it that your application has. I'd be glad to share it with your HR person tomorrow or whatever and see if they approve. But that application has all of the stuff in there with their current position, what they make, the current size of their district. It lists their current history. It lists their references. And then it also provides for us an opportunity to ask them some questions that we'll talk to you about a little bit later. So that being said, we're out recruiting. We'll go like crazy. And then you see I highlighted in orange on 6/8/2020 on that document. That's kind of my D-Day is what I'm calling it. It's the day where we take a look at the applications we've gotten in the first 3 weeks and say, do we have some viable candidates? And I will work with you or your representatives and say, what do you think? If we don't think we do, then the second step that I have, and I've already made contact with a couple Iowa superintendents who have reputations that are tremendous and are willing to serve as interims if you want. Now, the way we do interims is we don't just say, here's your interim, take it or leave it. We make them go through the same process of interviewing with you. And so you're going to see a little bit later on when we talk about picking candidates and doing interviews. So it's on the 22nd, 23rd of June. You'd either be interviewing highly qualified candidates that we were able to recruit, or if you say, nah, we're not ready, we don't think they're in there yet, we would ask you to look at the interim superintendents as a possibility, and we'd help you work through that process. So the 15th, the flyer goes out. We collect applications for about 3 weeks, determine the level of interest. I put down Plan B, interim, only because I heard you talk about that the other night, and I wanted to make sure they both coincide with the timeline, trying to get this wrapped by July 1. You might say you can't do it that fast, slow down. That's your choice to tell me. But I was following your lead on the video that I saw from last month. So on the 15th, then we would meet, and that's probably the most grueling meeting for you. That's about a 4-hour meeting. And at that meeting, what you'll find is not only the application, but you'll see a letter of interest. You'll see 4 current letters of recommendation. And then you'll also see a report or hear a report that a consultant like myself will do. And we don't assign ourselves to people from our state. We do it across states so that we get the best bias. We do the Google searches, we do the dog pile searches, we do all of the background check. We check the local newspapers, we check any state organizations they say they belong to, and we call all their references, not only for the year that we're currently in, but we try to go back at least 2 or 3 jobs if we can make contact with the references. And we're not looking for dirt. We're looking for consistency of performance. So if a person's going to be a great leader for you and everything we have says they're a great leader, were they a great leader in the prior district? Did they have different circumstances that might match more closely with what you're looking for? We pull all that together, and so you're going to get a packet that's going to be fairly thick that you'll review that night for about 8 to 10 candidates if we can recruit that many. Those 8 to 10 candidates then will also get a video link that we hand them with 3 questions. Three questions. First one is tell us about yourself, and they go through their little bio that they want to sell. Second thing we do is tell us what the major issues are in education today and what have you done in your current district to improve those. And then the third thing is how have you involved the community, engaged the community in the future that you have or the vision you have for your school district. And so that's a video that you'll get to see. It's about a 10-minute video for each of them. So you can see that 4 hours will get eaten up pretty fast if we have 8 people. You'll have 10 minutes of video. You'll have 10 to 20 minutes of reading each of the packets. And then in the end, you'll wind up comparing each of the candidates to the next candidate through a matrix that we use with them. So that's a fairly long interview or a long process. If we aren't able to do the top candidates as being highly qualified, then I would suggest might be a time to do interviews for an interim with the middle of the month be. Then if you do the interviews, we interview them the following week after we've made our decision there. I put down we put down 90 minutes is what we usually have with each candidate, and that's with the board itself. It's allowed to be a closed session. So you could have 4, you could have 6, however many you want out of the pack, and you could interview them. I put down just 2 a night, 4 candidates is typical. And you would do that right now, I'm gonna say via Skype or via Zoom because of the travel that might be involved. We're not even sure whether we can fly or go anyplace or do whatever. So that would be something that we would do on the 22nd and the 23rd. Once you've done that, then I would meet with you via face-to-face if we're allowed, or via this direct, and we would determine who the top 2 candidates are that you think might best fit your needs as a superintendent going forward. Then we would set up that final interview for the 25th of June. And then that's where you have to decide if we are open. You're debating a lot of things that none of us know about with the governor, but if we are open and we are allowed to have under 10, you could have representatives of teacher groups, representatives of business groups, representatives of administrators in a room, the way we did it in the last district I did, because we were halfway into the process face-to-face, and then we had to go to complete social norm. So what the board at that time decided to do was use the auditorium, and the board had themselves spaced throughout the auditorium, which seems a little awkward and rather distant, and had the candidates set up on the stage, and then they videoed that and they showed it out to their community, and the community could do feedback via a sheet that we give as well. So there's a couple options that we have. Another option is to have a community forum if we're allowed at that time. You're debating whether you can have a prom or you can have graduation. I'm not sure that somebody would like 400 people in an auditorium necessarily listening to a candidate go. But if that's a forum that you choose, we'll set it up. I'd be the moderator. I'd be there with you. Each of the people walking in sign in. They also fill out a card if they have a question they want to ask the candidates. The candidates then get I ask the questions and then they answer in 2 or 3 questions. You get about an hour that way. And then I ask the same questions to the second candidate. While the second candidate's being answered, you would get the first candidate for one final interview in which you would ask them questions that you still had going through your mind or that you picked up from stakeholder groups based upon the videos that you've done. So you have a couple different times that you can meet with the person. Obviously, the what if is when we get to the 15th of June, are we going to do candidates that have been applying or are we going to do interim? Either way, I'll be there with you to help you walk through that process and make sure we get it right. If you did do an interim, typically they write a contract that's outside of the purview of the typical contract we write for superintendents. And we use Brett Nitschke as a lawyer who helps write those agreements. And it's no additional charge to you. That comes as a part of our package that we quoted you. And we'll put that together if that's the option that you choose. Once you do choose the final candidate and you say on the 25th, this is the one we want, we'll call them right up while you're in the room and we'll say, will you take the job? And by then they will have pretty much made a commitment that they're coming or not coming, because usually that day involves bringing their wife or their family or their spouse or their family, whatever the case might be. And in the end, you'll offer the position. We'll give them the opportunity to say yes, and then we'll get the contract written and we can help you negotiate that if we want. That's the time that I put together that includes the process. Let me just stop there and catch my breath and take a drink of water, and you tell me what you got as questions right now.
So on the time, the example calendar, I guess, timeline.
Yep.
And I guess, we would be looking at the potential of, hiring someone on June 25th.
Yep.
I guess the more I thought about it, I thought, wow, that's kind of late considering the contracts start July 1, but then is it really going to ultimately matter if you hired somebody a week earlier than that? It's not going to really, in the world of people looking for this job, it probably, I don't think a week or 10 days is going to matter a whole lot, is it?
I don't think so. John and I talked a little bit about that, and because we were saying, well, what do you think the possibilities are if people are going to be willing to leave a district that's maybe under the same duress yours is right now? Will we have prom in July? Will we have sports in the fall? Will we open school? Will we have multiple ways to open school? I have a feeling everybody's in the same boat. And if they're interested in looking for this opportunity, I'm going to believe that we can convince them they should apply. I don't believe that it would necessarily be a problem if they apply knowing it's going to be a short time frame that they would be able to. I did one 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago I did one, and we actually started on May 1st, and by July 1st we had somebody hired, and it wound up that we were able to get a highly qualified. In fact, I was surprised we got so many highly qualified candidates. Different circumstance. I'm not going to promise you that, but we'll give it our best shot should you choose to go that route. Are there things in there you're saying, I don't know if that works for us?
Well, no, I don't. Here's the interesting part. I'm the only one that's been part of a search process like this before. So it's pretty new. And, to me, obviously we are on a short time frame. We didn't have that issue the last time.
Right.
But it is what it is. And to me, it looks pretty thorough for, as short a time as we have.
Well, I'm trying to combine two things. I do believe there are people out there who are highly qualified that would look for an opportunity to be the Ottumwa superintendent. I also believe that because of the situation we're in, some might be reluctant and say, I don't know if I should do it right now. I'd do it if it were in the fall for the next year. I'm not sure. But until we test the water, my commitment is to go as hard as I can, trying to recruit for you and see what we come up with.
Sure.
The alternative is at that tipping point in June, where we say, boy, I don't know if we're going to get the right candidates for you based upon your qualifications. And so then sounds like you're open at least to talking about an interim.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. I like the idea of the online survey link getting out there so that we can get feedback from our community. And I like the D-Day, as you call it. I think that's a pretty good date as far as, we should have a good idea by then of applicants that we have and whether we want to move forward with an interim or hire a superintendent at that time.
Other comments, other questions?
I like it.
I appreciate the fact that you're working with us on such a short timeline, and that we have several options depending upon how everything goes out.
Oh, sure, sure. And even at the point where we get down to interviewing them or do an interim, you still have the option to say, you know what? None of that's going to work for us. We're going to continue the search. And that's the commitment we're making. We want somebody that's going to provide you the kind of services that you want. And that's our guarantee. That's why we guaranteed you 2 years. And if it doesn't work out in the 2 years, then we'll do it again for free. That's our promise. And I don't know many people do that. So it sounds to me like you're okay with the timeline. I looked at your calendar for board meetings. You know, obviously today is the 11th, the 26th. Is that a better time for us to come back and do that, the survey results and all that? Would you provide some time during that meeting? Would that be okay, rather than set a special meeting?
Yeah, that's fine
Is
for
it
me.
the
Is anybody else?
25th or 26th?
26th, 25th is Memorial Day.
Yeah, I had the
Oh, okay.
26th.
Yep.
And the only reason I'm trying to coordinate it with some of your meetings so you don't feel like you're getting pulled out of the house every night with everything going on.
No, I'm okay with that.
And then is it June 1 and 15? Are those your meetings as well?
No. It's June 8th and
8
June
and 22nd.
22nd.
Yeah, 8th and 22nd.
8 and 22nd. Okay. So the 8th would work out for the deadline materials.
Yep.
The 22nd. Well, we can't interview that night. We'd have to do it another time, wouldn't we? So I got to change that
Is
date.
that
Maybe the 23rd.
23rd.
That, yeah, that
maybe
15th.
move those to the 23rd, 24th, maybe?
4th.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
I just want to get close. Obviously, things could happen that cause us to throw it off, but, and then June 8th, really you don't have a need for a meeting there. Would the 15th work for everybody? Would everybody have that date available? Do you know? That's the long meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine
I'm
with me.
okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
What time? I mean, that's the entire evening?
Well, I put down 5 to 9. You can set the time if you want. You start at 6 normally.
Yeah.
Why don't I try to do it from 6 to 9?
That'd be fine.
Okay. And then the 23rd, obviously I'm just going to be changed to the 24th because I'd meet with you after you've had your 4 interviews. And that would just be via Skype. And then the other one is stakeholder groups and interview the finalists. Do you want that to be on, well, you can't. The 22nd you already got. Would that be all right if we use the 25th, or is that a bad date for people?
It's okay. Yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay, so then one of the questions I'll ask you at the end is to approve the modified time schedule with those changes. We changed the 22nd, 23rd, we're doing 23rd and 24th, and we're doing the 24th for the meeting with the consultant, and then we left everything else the same. I'll get you a clean copy of all of that. Then I heard you say, send out the community survey with the qualities we desired. Get that pushed out tomorrow, working with John or your technology person. And then we'll push out a note. We'll talk to the principals and make sure they know, encouraging people to get as many of these in as they can. And we'll set that date for the 20th, I believe we said, right? Yeah, the 20th. And then I'll be able to share that with you on the 25th.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, make sure I get my numbers right. Now the flyer, if we put a tentative one together, kind of something to get out to people tomorrow or by the weekend, do you want to have everybody see that and give you feedback, Dave or John, or how do you want to do that? Because I don't want to send something out, you're saying, don't say that. We'll certainly generate what we can find on your city page and on your web page, and we'll share that with you or whoever you want to see it. But I need some kind of tentative approval of that profile.
Is that something you could email to the whole board?
I can. Yep.
And then everybody can, I mean, if that's all right with everybody, you take a look at it, try and respond as quickly as possible.
Sure.
That'll be
Yep.
great. I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
All right. Then the last thing we got to do, well, two things. First of all, I want to talk about the third document that we sent you. It probably came, it's a kind of a colored one, and it says suggested superintendent search advertising. With your short package that you have here, I'm going to tell you everything on there and what group that it actually hits with. Recommended by us is the AASA job bulletin and website. That is $409 for 30 days. That's not included in your fee, but we find that AASA is one that the superintendents that are out there practicing superintendents and people who want to be, they look at that. That gets about 4,000 hits a month. And so if somebody were looking, we think it's worth the $400 to advertise there for that one. So we'd recommend that one. You get the next one, Education Week newspaper and website. That's included in our base fee. So the fee that you've already agreed to, that's already included. Then the rest of it on the above the NABSE, we pretty much say we don't see any reason to do that. The Association of Latino, we don't necessarily do that one, and I'll explain why. We don't necessarily do the Education America Network website. The School Leadership 2.0 we don't do. The reason we don't is because the executive's only website that you see for free is one that we get that same coverage with. The National Association of Superintendents, again, it's free. We get that coverage as well. Ray and Associates, you're already listed on our website, and that is free or included in your fee, 5,000 hits a month on a normal month. The Ladder's Passport, again, that's a free job listing. And then Teach Iowa is a free job, but Ray and Associates can't put anything on that job listing. So I talked to John about creating some kind of an initial, here's what we're looking for, and getting that out to Teach Iowa, if that makes sense to you. He said he had an HR person or a communication person that could do that. So we'd recommend using all of the free ones that you can, unless you feel like there's something on there that you would miss. You're going to get all of the superintendents with AASA. That's an additional $409. We already included Education Week and newspaper, which covers every teacher education group there is and in every corner of the United States. And then any of these others that are specific to a Latino group, they have Black school educators, we think you're covered with those other two that we just talked about. And then I'd encourage everybody to use all the free listings. And we'll put those out there for you tomorrow if those are acceptable to you.
So essentially $409 for the one and on all the free ones is what you're saying.
Yes, and we've already included Education Week, and you're going to have full coverage in all 50 states. Every group, anybody who's looking for a superintendent's position, usually use those first two, but then they use the Ray website as well, and then some of these others we do to cover our bases. So we think you'll get good coverage for 30 days.
It makes sense to me. What does everybody think? Have opinions on that?
I
I'm
agree.
okay.
I like
That's fine.
Okay, so I'll ask you to make that part of your approval, and I'll give you kind of the verbiage that you can use if you'd like. Then the last thing that I kind of need to double check, it is John and Dave that are going to be the contacts for the district, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Correct.
And then are there any specific state requirements you want? Do you guys want a doctorate? Do you want a person just to be certified in the state of Iowa? Would you hire a person who's not in Iowa but has the qualifications to be certified in Iowa? I just need a little feedback from you on which way to go on that.
Good question.
I probably caught you off guard a little bit.
That's okay. Yeah, the qualifications to be a superintendent in Iowa, I don't have a problem if they're not in Iowa to apply. I mean, as long as, yeah, does that make sense?
we put in the brochure, if I had a copy that I would have sent you, it says, must be qualified in the state of Iowa, certified in the state of Iowa, or the ability to qualify. And what happens when somebody calls us and says, I'm in Idaho and I'd like to be able to take and apply for this job, do I qualify? We send them to the Board of Educational Examiners who evaluate their transcripts. And they're the ones that say, you need one more class, or yes, you qualify, or no, you don't. We don't make that decision. I just want to make sure you're aware of that. We would direct anybody who says, do I qualify? So if somebody says, hey, Dale said I qualified, not true. I'm not going to do that. We leave that up to the Board of Educational Examiners so you don't get in trouble later on.
Sounds good.
And I'm okay with that being in there, you know, certified either already or the ability to be certified in Iowa.
Okay. I'll put that together. I'll make sure that you and John see that ad before I send it out, Dave.
Okay.
I'll send it to the whole board too.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, one more thing. Have you guys discussed salary and benefits at all yet?
We have not.
Do you want to do it tonight, or do you have any idea? I mean, I've done a little bit of research, but again, I don't want to persuade you into something you need a little more time to think about.
I mean, I know in my mind, I have a range that I'd like to see. I just didn't know if we was going to talk about that tonight or if that's something we discussed during our one-on-ones, and then.
We can do it in one-on-one, and then we can bring it back on the 25th.
Do we have to be in closed session to do that?
You will be on the next one, yes. So let's put that on hold, and I'll bring that back on the 25th. It'll only delay 2 of our advertisement things, but I'll see what I can do to get that through. You see the executives only and the passport, they require you put the salary to use their free service, but we can still use it then. It won't be a problem. If they're looking on those 2, I'll guarantee you they're looking on AASA and Education Week.
Okay.
All right.
And we're the 26th, right? We'll come back on the 26th.
Yeah, 26th. Yeah, I said
Okay.
25th. 26th is right.
Dale, when you talk about salary,
Yep.
you mentioned that you did some comparables, because we have access to some of that information as well. Is that something you do as part of the search, or do we need to kind of check that out?
We'll do it either way. Some districts like to have their own comparative groups that you want, and you certainly can email me, John, and say, here's the groups that we want to compare with. We also go down, we use the enrollment figures in the state Department of Ed, and we pull that up and we look at the base salary. We look at what other things might be in there, and we try to make a guesstimate for 2021 what they might get. Excuse me. And so we're willing to do that, and I'd be willing to bring that back to your next meeting if that works for you.
Okay, it sounds like you use the same kind of data we use. If you're looking at enrollment size, we looked at 10 up and 10 down typically.
Yep.
So if you do something like that and can bring that data, I'll maybe have it available just to make sure we're on the same page, and that should work.
Okay, why don't I talk to you about which 10 you might use to make sure we're on the same page on that, and I'll email you tomorrow.
That sounds good.
Okay?
Yeah, when you get that stuff, Dale, if you want to, when you get those numbers, if you want to email those to the board,
Yep.
That might help speed up the process a little. Everybody be able to formulate kind of where we stand now.
Okay.
At least when they talk to you, maybe they can express their opinion at that point.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. All right. So then probably the last thing is, who do you want the firm to send the invoices to? My boss asked that.
Send them to Dave.
Send them to
You can
Dave.
send them here.
Yeah.
I would say to the district office, to John. Is that
Just
right?
to John?
Yeah, Dale, if you send them to my attention, we'll get them rolling through and double check against the contract, and we'll go through and pay them like that.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So what I kind of need approval from you, or in the form of a motion, is I need you to formally accept the modified timeline that we put together, along with the 33 characteristics survey going out via how we talked about pushing it out tomorrow. And then the advertisements that we talked about, really the only additional cost you have is that 409, Dave.
Okay.
So Dale, we don't have an action item listed on our agenda tonight. Is there something that you can have?
Oh, I see what you did. Yeah, if you just want to do this via consensus for right now, I was reading on your agenda and it looked like action. I was taking it as you were going to take action on it. So yeah, if you're okay with this and you can give me consensus, I'll accept that and we'll move forward.
I'm okay with that, Dave.
What we just said?
Yep.
Opposed?
That'd be fine.
I'm okay with that.
I'm
Okay.
okay with that.
I'm going to take that as approved. Then can I do one more thing? Because I know you got to. If I just call your roll, would you tell me a time that you'd like me to call you to do the one-on-one, or email you to do that, whichever? Jeff, do you have a time that works for you?
How about
Next 3 days.
tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock tomorrow. You got it. And Morgan.
Could we do it tomorrow evening?
Yeah,
What time?
sometime after 7.
Yeah, let's do 7 o'clock.
Okay, 7 o'clock it is. Brian.
How long do these take? I'm
About
only
30
asking because I don't
30
want
to
to be all, go ahead.
30 to 40 minutes. 30 to 40 minutes.
Would you be able to do mine after Morgan, or is that too late?
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Nancy.
Anytime tomorrow is fine.
Okay, any on Tuesday. Okay. Why don't we just say 9 o'clock? Would that work for you?
9 o'clock's fine.
Okay. And then Christina.
I'm available Wednesday after 4,
Okay.
if that works. Anytime after 4.
Okay. What, you need a little time after 4, or do you want to just shoot for 4? Let's
Yeah.
take 4 o'clock. 4
4
o'clock.
is good.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
If that
Thank you.
changes, you should have my email. If it changes, you can certainly, and I'm going to give you my cell number here shortly too. Dave, how about you?
Anytime, whatever works for you.
Okay. And Jeremy.
What about doing mine after Christina's on Wednesday? Would that work, like 5 o'clock?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Wednesday at 5 o'clock. So Dave, why don't I do you at 10 tomorrow? Let's just set,
Perfect.
if that works for you, because then I've got everybody in a row and I'll be able to get all this together and out to you by Thursday for sure.
Sounds good.
You guys are great to work with. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to give you my cell number.
To ask with the board, the advertising piece, just to make
Yeah.
sure we're on the same page. I had written down that we were gonna do that $409 AASA, the free the education week for $395 that's included in the base fee.
Yep.
Then all the free ones down towards the bottom, and then none of the other optional. Is that where we landed?
Correct.
That's what I
Yes.
understood. Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had that down. Thank you.
Nope. I'm glad you clarified. That's good. That's good. Anything else that I can do for you at this time?
Thank you.
Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like we have some action items. Board policy first readings. We have a couple of policies there. Looks like board policy 500 and board policy 219. Any questions on those? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we accept all the policies under board policy 500.
Second, Jones.
Further discussion? All in favor, Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
Yes.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
Yes.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller,
Yes.
David Wabeners, yes. Looks like we have board policy 219.
Move
For a
that we
motion,
approve board policy 219 is written.
thank you.
Second, Weller.
Discussion? All in favor, Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
Yes.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
Yes.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller,
Yes.
David Waberner's a yes. Some more board policy, second and final reading. Any questions on any of these?
I move that we approve item A, B, and C
Thank you.
as written.
Second, Jones.
Further discussion? All in favor, Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
Yes.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
Yes.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller,
Yes.
David Waberner is a yes. Moving on, a recommendation to approve the 2021 Schoology agreement that runs July to 1st to June 30th of 2021, $19,790.40. This is just a renewal of a contract, is it not, Nicole?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's our online learning platform for the high school.
Any questions on this?
So moved, Manson.
Second, Brown.
Further discussion? All in favor, Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
Yes.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
Yes.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller,
Yes.
Dave Waberner is a yes. Next item, recommendation to approve additional cameras, access, control, and security for Pickwick Edition. And Tyler and Nicole, do you have any self-explanatory?
It seems pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, just 3 additional cameras for the new wing and then 5 card access readers with a couple of motion detectors.
Okay.
Was this, did we get bids on this or was it just the one?
It was just the one. This is more of a specialized type of service or equipment. For example, the camera system, there's only one local contractor that's certified to do the installation.
Okay.
And a similar situation with the card access system.
Okay. Move that we approve.
Thank
Second,
you.
Jones.
Got a set motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
Yes.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
Yes.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller,
Yes.
Dave Waberner is a yes. Next item, item number 5, PTYC opening. And you have some attachments.
Yes, and one of them is just updated with more information today. So this would be the plan to open up with 50 students as the max to start with, just to see how well it works on May 18th.
All right. So is it May 18th, just the staff back, kids on the 18th?
Kids on the 18th, we'd open up with kids on the 18th and staff back.
Okay. Any questions?
Okay, well, on this document now, it looks like it's updated, so I'm taking that back. Dave, it looks like on the 20th the kids come, so the staff come 2 days before.
That's why I asked that, but I was wondering if it just hadn't been updated yet to the other way. So the kids will be on the 20th, staff back on the 18th.
Yes, that's what it says on this now. So, and this is the new one, so.
Okay, so kids on the 20th, which will be a week from Wednesday, and staff back a week from today.
Yes.
And we're only going to accept 50 children?
Just to start with, that was the plan, to see how well we can keep social distancing and safety measures in place. And then they talked about if that works out well, we could add capacity.
What were we talking class sizes in that, Nicole?
So we don't have to follow the social, which sounds crazy, social distancing guidelines of 10 or less, but I said I think for safety reasons, we should try to follow the 10 or less.
Okay.
But if you look on the CDC guidelines, that's what we have to have, the 1-to-9 ratio. The 1-to-14 would work if we could have social distancing. So Becky's been working on this plan ever since you guys discussed it at the last board meeting, and making sure that she's meeting all the regulations and qualifications, so.
So
Nicole,
we'll do 10 or less, is that correct?
Sorry, I didn't hear that because you had both of you talking.
Sorry,
Go
we'll be
ahead, Brian.
10 or less. 10 or less, correct?
There'll be a plan of 10 or less in one area at a time.
Thank you.
Nicole, does Chuck have a plan for somebody to start cleaning that building once we get this going?
He knows about the plan to open up and what that looks like. And since you guys approved that we can have custodians, or discussed, I guess you didn't formally approve that we can have custodians back, I will let him know tonight that that's the plan, and he can make sure we have the process to make sure it's cleaned regularly. And more than once a day, I'm sure we'll have to clean bathrooms and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions?
I move that we approve the plan reopening May 18th at 50% capacity.
With kids on the 20th?
Kids on the 20th, yep.
Thank you.
Second, Jones.
Further discussion? All in favor, Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
Yes.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
No.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller,
Yes.
Dave Wildberner's a yes. Next item, recommendation for the board to approve a DLR contract for creation of a facilities master plan. Pending approval of the contract, District Legal's Counsel.
So a couple things, we've got Eric and Andrew with us tonight from DLR Group. So just so the board understands, we have Estes that's doing the facility assessment portion, that's looking at the other buildings that you wanted assessed. DLR Group is a long-term facility plan. They can discuss the details too, but that's what they're here doing, and what we could actually create a long-term plan moving forward. I also wanted to let you know that legal counsel has now reviewed that document, got back today, and Eric sent me the updated one. So what's in there has all been changed per legal counsel's guidance. Welcome, Eric and Andrew. Thank you.
Yep. Hello, folks. How are you guys doing?
Good.
So when we look through this document, Nicole, the things that are crossed out, things that are underlined or added, is this the updated version then?
Yeah. This is Eric. I'll speak for her. Yes, those are all items or edits that have been made. We could run a clean version, which is just kind of minus all the strikeouts. But your legal counsel prefers to have the comparative version, and so that's what we show you there, is just to show you the language as it was previously, and then the new language as it's listed now and agreed to.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure this, I guess, more than anything, was the agreed version, that this wasn't just struck out by our attorney and this is what we're looking at. If this has been agreed to, I'm okay with this.
Nicole, did I misunderstand you, or did you say legal counsel has not reviewed this?
They have reviewed and got back today with this updated document, and Eric
Okay.
shared it. So
Okay.
they have reviewed. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm okay if legal counsel's approved it.
And just to be thorough, we don't currently have any sort of a facility master plan. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have no long-term facility plan. We have a short-term maintenance facility plan, but not an actual long-term scope and sequence to what projects should be done next.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to accept the facility master plan, if that's what you need, Dave.
That's what I'm looking for.
I'll second Weller.
Further discussion? Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
Yes.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
Yes.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller,
Yes.
Dave Wagoner's a yes. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks.
guys.
Looks like item number 7, memorandum of understanding for adjustments to addendum C, which would have been what we discussed last week. Looks like they adjusted some of what we talked about. Any questions on that?
I make a motion that we approve that.
Second, Brown.
Thank you. Further discussion?
No.
All in favor, Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
Yes.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
Yes.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller,
Yes.
and David Wagoner's a yes. Looks like next on the agenda, some Evans travel trip schedule.
I think you skipped one, Dave.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, it's locked, so you might not see it if you're not signed in.
Well, yeah, it's not letting me sign in, so I missed one. Somebody help me.
Okay. Item
Number
number
8
8,
is
graduation proposal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Graduation proposal. Here we go.
Sorry, I just opened it too, you can see it. Only had closed it because we keep modifying and changing this proposal, but I'm hoping tonight through conversations, we can come to a resolution that we communicate out and stick with for families and students. So this is completely updated today. We talked about Schaefer Stadium and how we could have, we still have over 300 seniors. So for a May 24th date, even if we didn't have family members in, it wouldn't work for social distancing guidelines. So we talked through and called the Bridgeview Center on May 24th. If we could still do a graduation where students, seniors, and their parents could drive up, we'd have a stage at the Bridgeview Center. We'd have time spread out. The students would get out in their cap and gown, get on the stage, get their diploma cover, take their picture, get back in their car, drive off, the next one comes up. I know it's not, as Hutch would say, maybe classy, but it would be functional. So at least kids have an opportunity to have something in May, and then still have a plan for that face-to-face actual graduation ceremony, hopefully later, if possible. But if not possible, at least they've had an opportunity to wear their cap and gown, have a picture taken, and have some type of short celebration for graduation.
So I guess exactly what are you looking for? So,
I guess
because it's obvious I
what the
can't
board-
see it. It's not letting me log in, so.
So Dave, what the proposal that's on here is the driving in of the cars, doing like 40 of them at a time over an 8-hour period. So.
Okay. And this is, I guess my question, I understand the graduation of 24th and everybody had that penciled in a year ago when we had the calendar approved by the board. And so I understand where the 24th is a magical date in a lot of people's books. And I know that we do have kids, potentially, leaving the town and maybe the state and who knows where, with college or if they're in the military or any of that. So I get where having a graduation type of ceremony of some sort, would be beneficial. I guess I just don't know if we do that the 24th, is that really if we can never do something else, is that what that's going to accomplish essentially?
Well, the problem is we're hoping, of course, like you guys all are, I know this, and so are families, to have an actual ceremony at some point in time. But we're fearful if we can't have an actual ceremony, the later it gets into the summer, what happens with some of those students And how do we organize them ever even getting a picture in their cap and gown, getting, the diploma, the picture taken with, Mr. Hutchinson. So the longer it goes out in the summer, the more the high school administration's worried. And I think there's validity to that kids will be gone and moving on to the next stage of their lives. So this way, at least there would be something. And again, I don't think it's, it's fabulous, but at least there's something in place where they get to wear their cap and gown and their family gets a picture. They're all in the car. They can maybe take a van if they have more in their family to pull up. I don't know. And get a picture of the event. And hopefully we're trying to find somebody, if this is the route to go, that could record this all and put it together in a nice video format. And then again, like I said, and if we can have graduation in July or maybe August or even June, like you guys have talked about, I think that's great. But if it doesn't happen, what does that look like if we have nothing in May for kids? I don't know.
Well, I guess and I understand it. This is not easy. I guess the thought process too is if we're going to do some sort of a potential drive up where you can hop out and have a scheduled time, is there a reason why we would still have to use Bridgeview and not maybe do a Schaefer if the weather? Is there? To me, it would probably be more memorable, honestly, than to have something at Schaefer with the pictures that they could take there might be a little bit more than Bridgeview.
I agree with the pictures. I guess we were thinking through the fact that at Schaefer, there's no parking lot in close proximity to be able to take really good pictures on the field. So it'd be hard to manage people not all coming out of their cars wanting to take pictures of what was going on. And the time frame would be a lot slower than a kid popping out, walking up on a stage. Again, I know the Bridgeview parking lot it sounds like not an ideal place, but we didn't know how that would work on Schaefer without allowing people to get, out of their cars and so forth. We'd probably have to do like 10 minutes per child if we did it at Schaefer, I would guess. Whereas this, we're planning less than 2 minutes.
Or even the front steps of the high school. I know it's outdoors. That means more than just nothing against Bridgeview. It's a fantastic facility. But if we're just looking for a picture background, the steps would probably be, I don't know. Those are just.
I like that idea, Dave, the high school. Yeah, if we're not going to do Schaefer's, that's a good idea, I think.
Nicole, how many graduates are we talking about?
We don't know how many would come for
what's
over 300.
Because if you're doing 40 graduates an hour, right?
Yeah.
That means that every student has 1.5 minutes.
Yep.
So that means if you get somebody that runs you behind a little bit, it takes them a while to get out of the car, it takes them a while to walk, whatever, then are you a little bit concerned that your whole time could be thrown off so that the W's are not, because if you're averaging 2 minutes for 300 kids, that's 10 hours.
Yep, it's a full day and it's a lot of time. And that's why we were going to give them the diploma covers with no diploma in case they got in the wrong order through the drive-through line.
Right.
That they just have the diploma cover and we will mail them their diplomas. But you're right, it's a long process, but it gets some face-to-face type of thing. And I like the high school idea if we can make that work. And I'm sure the police department would work with us maybe on closing down a couple streets for that day, maybe?
Couldn't you stage the vehicles if we did it at the Schaefer steps or at high school steps? Couldn't you stage those in the employee lot right there next to the church? And then have them drive up through and have the stage or whatever near the steps?
I think that would work, Jeremy. I like that idea better than the parking lot as well.
And
I was just going to add real quickly too, even at Schaefer, you have more than one entrance. If you split kids up, coming in more than different, I don't know. I think it's a lot no matter what you do, but I'd like to see if we're going to do something outside, like a drive through where you hop out, snap a picture, get back in, let's go for a better backdrop.
Is everybody okay with the high school steps and what that looks like, because you could have the cars pull up and everybody wouldn't have to all get out of their car, then it could still be pretty quick.
Yeah, I like that idea better than bridge view, unless it doesn't work if it's raining, but.
Well, that would be a big problem. We also, we stuck with the date, but we're gonna have to start in the morning, and like Nancy was talking about, you're looking at like 10 hours. So I don't know if some people will be upset if we took some of the morning time, but I don't want to be out there at 10 o'clock at night when it's dark and people can't see the pictures either. So I think we'd have to start in the morning and try to be done by at least 8 o'clock at night. If that makes sense.
I agree.
Personally, I mean, we sent out the survey that overwhelmingly said people want the traditional graduation, and now we're like constantly coming up with ideas for not that. Yeah, I don't, even at 2 minutes, if you've got a van full of people all trying to get out and take a picture, it seems like a cluster waiting to happen to me. I mean, I understand trying to get it on the original date. I understand the intent of that, but we're all making sacrifices and compromises here. I don't know. It seems hard to accomplish to me, I guess, is all I'm saying.
And again, the only reason we're coming up with revised plans, you guys, is because we're worried that it can't happen. And what does that look like for seniors if there isn't anything that can happen and we don't do something at least in May to recognize them? That's the piece. And that's the piece that, you know, high school administration have felt pretty strongly about the whole time, and they prefer to have more of the face-to-face, but we have to follow the guidelines of the governor currently. And this way there would be something. But again, hopefully there'll still be the face-to-face, but I understand it's going to be a lot to manage and organize in a quick period of time. But I talked to Mr. Hutchinson this afternoon, and he knows what this is and thinks we can pull it off. I don't know.
Does it have to be done in one day, or could you do it over 2 days to give each more time? Or is it because, I mean, I realize that May 24th is like a special day. I understand that, but.
That's a good question, Brian. We could, you know, that's a good question, because I was thinking the same thing. Could you do half the alphabet on Saturday and the other half on Sunday?
I think that would make it more
You're on
manageable.
staff.
I think staff would probably prefer to do 2 shorter days than
Right.
be there from 8 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, setting up and getting it ready.
And then you could allow a little more time because, you know, sure as anything, the first 10 people are going to be that group that takes, you know, 4 minutes, and then the whole day is going to be shot. So I think you have to allow twice as much time at least for each student to have that fudge factor in there to catch up if you need to and all that.
I'd rather plan for 4 minutes and have most people take 2 minutes than the other way around.
Exactly. So that puts it at 2 days. And I think that's a great idea, but make it like Saturday and Sunday, again, because my opinion is people have, you know, things reserved, parties reserved, all that kind of stuff. So.
And don't get me wrong, Morgan, I agree with you. I just don't, at this point, I don't know where to go for right now.
Yeah.
So I've got a question. So if we're going to do some sort of, is this going to be really just the graduate getting a picture taking with, or receiving their diploma from you, Nicole? Is that accurate? Getting a picture taken with Hutch?
Mr. Hutchinson would be there, I'd be there. If you want to be there, you could gladly be there as board president. Heck, I guess, you know, as long as we keep it under 10, whoever on the board would like to be there.
So I guess my question is, typically, don't we have a photographer that takes the pictures when they shake hands with the principal?
Yes.
So at that point in time, I would like to think, you know, this isn't, I mean, if families want to go a different day with their gown and get pictures taken on the steps, but I mean, ultimately, they would usually only get, if they want to take them while they're, you know, standing around, that's fine. But in the world of keeping order, I mean, it's, you know, call the name, they walk up, you know, get their diploma, get their picture, move on. I mean, and tape that, take pictures of it, I would think would be, I mean, that's similar to what we do at graduation. You know,
yeah, but you have a car pulling up, you have to get out, you have to adjust your gown, you have to adjust your cap, walk over, walk across, go back and get back in the vehicle. You know, it's not just like they're lined up, you know, 2 feet apart.
Well, no, I understand that, but I guess I'm thinking you have a long sidewalk there. I don't, why everybody have to stay in their car the whole time.
Because of social distancing, that's why.
But we could be 30 feet apart and at least they'd be out of their car.
Well, and to that point, you could do that at Schaefer. You could line people up on the football field 30 feet apart and just be ready to roll through the names up on a stage pretty quickly too.
It's just parking.
Yeah, that one's a little harder to get in and out as fast. I guess that's, I mean,
I think at the end of the day, this is just something, it's not ideal. It's not what any of us want to do. But the sad reality is this may be the only opportunity for some of our graduates to have any kind of graduation ceremony. You know, like Dave mentioned earlier, you know, you got people leaving for military that are leaving this summer. You got people going to college and just kids moving on in life. It's not ideal. I don't think it's what any of us wants. I think right now this might be our best option for the regulations that the governor's got us under right now. I still think, and I think most of us agree, that we still schedule something later down the road and hope for the best then. But again, like Nicole said, I don't want to get into July and August and still not be able to do something, and we haven't done anything for our kids. So while this is not ideal, I trust that if we were to move forward with this, that at least the kids would have something, and we'll make it the best we can.
Yeah, I agree with doing a 2-day weekend on it.
Yeah, I think 2 days isn't probably a bad idea.
and the other question I have, is this gonna be pictures with the principal with a mask on, or, I mean, is this, I know it's memorable, but I don't know if that's, you know, I mean, you think of those things, you get a picture on the steps and that's memorable and all, but if it's gonna be people wearing masks.
Dave, I have this great idea that we get our Bulldog mascot there.
That's where I was going.
He has the mask on. He has the mask on so the kids can get a picture with the mascot with the mask on. I have that great vision in my head. And I'll volunteer to be the Bulldog that day if nobody
And if you get 300 kids taking a picture with the same guy, he's going to be a petri dish by the end of it.
That's a great idea, Jeremy. So glad you volunteered. Thanks.
So I guess, any more discussion or questions, or how, I mean, ultimately, Nicole, aren't you looking for an approval to give you that May 24th date? And I guess we're looking for the high school steps primary, if I'm reading everybody correct, or however the motion is, to do it that day and to do it as you, or as the, I mean, honestly, it's really as the staff seem fit, in my opinion. I don't think it's probably any of us to be able to say, do it in 2 days, do it in 3 days. If they want to do it in 1 day and they can get it done in 1 day and do it, you know, I think that's not really, you know, up to us. And there's, you know, and I don't, who knows what attendance will be like. They may not have 300 kids show up.
And that's what I was going to say, Dave. Could we not make the motion to approve it for the 23rd and 24th, or a single day if staff sees it appropriate to do it in 1 day? Because I don't want to tell somebody they got to be there Saturday and Sunday if they're like, if all of them would just prefer to be there one long day. I wouldn't.
Right. Well, you start by scheduling them on Sunday, and then if you need to fall, you know, if there's so many that you can use Saturday as needed.
I'm just looking for a motion.
So I'll make a motion that we do graduation, open graduation
Did he freeze on everybody else's screen?
Yeah.
I was hoping it wasn't just me.
All right.
That was a powerful
In the
motion.
middle of the motion, he
That
just
timing
freezed.
could not be any more perfect than as soon as he starts making a motion.
That was powerful. Jeff, can you repeat that?
Make a motion to do graduation on the May 23rd and 4th. The 4th being at the high school steps within the reasonable precautions. You know, I guess within precaution, give everybody.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat that motion and tell me if I have it correct. Making a motion to have graduation that 23rd, 24th weekend, according to what they deem necessary, according to the precautions that need to be taken to follow the state guidelines.
Yes.
I'll second that, Weller.
So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions? All in favor, Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
Yes.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
Yes.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller,
Yes.
David Wildner's a yes. And this is, just to clarify, this is not necessarily, I mean, if magically everything changes, this is not necessarily saying we're not going to do something potentially at Schaefer,
Correct.
God willing,
At a
Correct.
later date.
at a later date. Gotcha.
So we're gonna keep those backup dates, if that's all right, that we have already set for June, July, and August.
I'm
Perfect.
good with that.
Is that something that we need to kind of put on the agenda every few weeks to make sure I mean, with the updates that we get from the governor, in case things really change for the better, which I would hope, or can we just talk about it anytime?
Yeah, I think we can, I mean, in 2 weeks, obviously, we'll see at the board meeting we'll probably know if the June date's going to work or not, potentially.
Okay. Okay.
So if I'm reading my agenda correctly, now we're to travel programs from Evans.
Correct, Dave.
Got some dates there.
So in talking to Ralph, these are some revised dates again. Stressing, he called today to say if parents do not or does not work for them, they can still get fully refunded for their trips, but he's trying to get these trips in if possible for students. So
these would have been programs that were already approved by the board originally, just with the situation we're in, looking for the approval because the dates have been revised. That's it.
correct, I think this is the third time dates are revised, and I mean, he needed to revise the dates, of course, because those trips would have happened quite a while ago, most of them.
Okay. Questions?
Just because we approve it now doesn't mean it's set in stone. It could always get revised later.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I think that Ralph probably is monitoring these places pretty well, I would guess.
Right.
So yeah, we could always cancel them later if we didn't feel safe sending kids to those cities.
With that, I move we approve.
Second, Weller.
All right. Further discussion? Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
No.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
No.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller,
Yes.
David Wildner's yes. Next item, waive personal leave payout for the year. Nicole, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so currently we have it where we plan to give staff whatever the compensation was for sub pay if they were not going to use their personal days, and then we ended up in this global pandemic. So in talking with Terry and John recently, we said it probably doesn't make sense since people haven't been working since March 14th, if we could ask them to take their days instead of have the expenditure of paying people on top of the fact. Because most people take their days, especially teachers in the spring, later on in the year when it's nice out. So I guess what we're asking the board is to give approval for staff members, for us to have staff members utilize their personal days this year and not have the option to be paid out for them based on the current circumstances.
So Nicole, what's the advantage of them taking them now? Do they get paid for them now?
It would, well, no, they wouldn't be paid. Well, yeah, they're getting paid, but they would just have a day where they're not expected. It's just like our directors. If they're right now, they take a vacation day. They're not expected to do work or log in or do their current requirements and expectations for that day of time. So it would still be a free day for them, whereas currently, you know, there are expectations in place for teachers and staff, majority of them now.
So the goal of this basically to kind of not get them to take, I mean, it was fit for them not to take days off during the year, is that right? And then get that at the end of the year?
So the goal was an incentive if they didn't take it to be able to have the opportunity to get paid out. But we're saying since they've been out of school since March 15th, they have the opportunity to be able to have quite a few days off. And this, we're asking them to take their days instead of having the district have extra expenses due to the COVID global pandemic of them not working or working modified schedules or so forth till the end of the year.
I mean, I completely understand where, especially in the time we're in, why that would make total sense. I guess I do, you know, in the whole devil's advocate type of thing, I do look at it too. So this is something, you know, that we would have put in the handbook last year, correct? Okay.
It's new, correct.
Yeah. So I guess it, and I know the handbook concept is kind of new for some of the contracts anyway. And I guess the only thing that's, that I guess I'm a little, you know, concerned on is we have a handbook that was adopted for the 1920 school year, essentially, and we would be voting to change the handbook before we finish the school year. And even though I understand it might make, you know, quite a bit of sense to me. I completely understand on that side, but on the flip side, it looks like, well, the whole discussion we've had as a board is, you know, handbooks, is it good, bad, or indifferent? You know, obviously with all the bargaining things, we've talked about handbooks a lot, but I guess I'm a little concerned that we're modifying a handbook before it's even a year old. And what, you know, going forward, what does that show us? Or I guess, you know, what do we look like? I mean, going forward with any of our groups of any of our employees, it just seems like it's, I mean, I don't know. That's just the way, I mean, believe me, I think it makes total sense. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it makes total sense, I think, to allow or to have people take their personal days now and not pay them. Don't get me wrong. But I also look at the other side of it and think, well, we're going ahead and changing something that they haven't even had for a year.
So Dave, we wouldn't be asking for you to actually change the handbook. We're asking to waive this portion due to the global pandemic that people are currently being paid to not work or work modified hours. So we didn't know there would be this situation, but in the future, we still want to keep this piece in the handbook. We just don't think it makes sense this year to double pay people we have some employee groups that really aren't working barely at all currently, and others that are working some, but very few that would be working close to a full work week. So to pay them to not work and then to pay them again to not work doesn't, again, make a lot of sense. And I would hope our employees, I would think, are very thankful they're all getting paid currently, whether they're working or not, and would understand this recommendation. For this year, not for permanently.
And the only piece I'll add on the budget side of things is that when we kind of budgeted for the incentive, we would have looked at the personal days remaining at the end of a school year. And as Terry's note indicates, approximately 75% of those personal days are typically taken in the spring. So with the school being closed during that time, we would be looking at that 75% of personal days still being on the books. So we'd be paying out a significantly higher incentive just because people haven't had to use those personal days during the school closure when they normally would have. So just as an example, if there were 25% of the days remaining for the certified staff group, it would be probably around 10 to 15,000 as it sits right now, the personal days on the books, we're looking at an expense of about 55,000. So just because staff hasn't had to use them because there has been no school in session. So it is a bit of a budgetary hit with the incentive due to the COVID situation that normally wouldn't have been there. So just from a budget side, that's another piece to consider.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing. And thank you for that, John. You know, in the world of it, does it make sense to me? Absolutely, it makes sense, 100%. It's just, you know, I look at that other side and think, well, and I know this is kind of a goofy year, and I do feel, to echo your comments, Nicole, I do feel, you know, we've tried as a board and everything to be as fair as possible through this whole time, and I would like to hope that employees of the district as a whole would hopefully recognize that and be appreciative of that. But yeah, it is interesting times.
And so some of these employees that'll be going back to work soon, like these custodians, they would have the option to use that personal day? Or you're asking that is already considered used?
The custodians are 12 months, so they're not in this discussion, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yeah, and the custodians are still covered by their master contract document as it relates to personal days. So
This would be not 12-month employees only?
outside of the custodian group, and the custodian group's covered by a collective bargaining agreement and not the handbooks. So their personal leave is still wrapped up into that. So they, I don't believe they'd be eligible for it until they're not covered by that piece.
Well,
Okay.
here's what I think. You mentioned the term, we're taking a hit, but you know, there's millions of people taking a hit. My opinion is it's not their fault. We had coronavirus, and I don't think we should make them take their personal days.
For me, I just think I see both sides. But for me, I think it just kind of moving forward goes back to a little bit of a trust issue. As long we want our staff to trust us, and not saying that would take it away, but that's my opinion on how I look at it. So
it'd be for associates, secretaries, teachers, all have this currently in place. So like the associates, the expectation is to be then the whole time they've been off to do their mandatory trainings.
Say that again.
So associates, teachers, and secretaries are all ones that have the option, because we redid their contracts, you know, in the past couple of years, that have the employee handbook piece. And currently our associates, the expectation since we've been closed on March 15th has been to complete their mandatory trainings that are actually due when they're hired at the beginning of their employment. So I just want you, so that 55,000 is teachers. That doesn't include the secretary personal days and associate personal days as well, of people that have been currently getting paid. Just so you have that information.
I can kind of echo what everybody said here. I think there's a lot of different sides to look at this, but at the end of the day, since March 16th, people have gotten their personal time. They've gotten more than, to nobody's fault of their own. I'm not saying anybody's not willing to do work, but there's been time that they've been paid for not working more than this 2 days of personal time had school stayed in session. So I feel like we've more than made it up to staff.
Any other comments or questions?
I guess the only last thing I would say, Dave, is I don't know if this is something that you could recommend to them. Please use your days, but not, we can't. I mean, I guess my opinion would be not to force them to use them or take that away, but basically ask them to use them before the end of the year, and maybe you get some that do and some that don't.
Anything else?
Man, this is a hard one.
And I'm first.
I mean, I'd like to find room for some compromise here as opposed to, you know, all or nothing. You know, I would like to think that if we asked them to do that they would do that, because I know they're good people, and I think over the last 6 or 8 weeks, they've probably gotten more than 2 days of personal time. I mean, it's not like we're asking them to clock in 40 hours a week for the last 6 weeks. But the other side of me goes back to negotiations, going back to when all this stuff got put in the handbooks, and how there was a trust issue, because it could just be modified or waived or changed at any time. And going back to December, you know, when we had our retreat, this is one of the things I talked about was we approved that handbook. And right now, I think we do it backwards. We do it in the fall, and we should be doing approval of a handbook in the spring, so that when teachers accept those contracts at the end of the year, they know what their employee handbook and benefits, it says it's going to be for that year. They don't come back to school in August, and then we're changing the handbook in September, October, and potentially changing their benefits. So this is where that animosity and that argument as, do we leave it in the master contract or do we put it in a handbook? That's why there's not a trust issue with putting stuff in a handbook, is because of things like this. I really am torn on this.
That's very well put, Jeremy.
I'm going to lean on the side of biting the 55,000 and letting these people get paid. I wish we had another option other than just all or nothing, you know, whether that's allowing them one extra, maybe 3 personal days next season, you know, as opposed to 2. Paying them for 1. If they've got 1 right now, we pay them for 1. If they don't have any, they don't get anything. I wish we had more conversation around what this could look like. You know, it's something that just gets emailed to us on Sunday, and you know, we got 24 hours to think about it. So
the one piece I just wanted to share with the board is that the personal leave incentive did not come from any of the bargaining contracts. That was something we introduced as a new district incentive to try to incentivize less absenteeism. So it wasn't anything that was ever in a master contract. It was something new that we introduced last year, just as a reference point. So we've never actually had it before this year, just so the board's aware.
And the board can table this.
We're aware now.
Yes.
Well, and the board can table this and vote on it later. To me, it was, again, something that we talked about needing board action on, because we talked about it as, again, a benefit we were providing. But in the circumstances when, again, you aren't having people work for months at a time and you're paying them, I'm at a loss for understanding the other side right now, because I really don't feel like there's anybody that's going to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're going to pay us to not use our personal days, when we're constantly being paid, with the expectations being very different than being employed and working full time. I don't think anybody in our entire system would say that this equates to that they've been working ever 40-hour weeks, and that they aren't just grateful that they're currently getting their paychecks. And this would be, again, an additional cost that we weren't planning on or budgeting for or planned for. And none of us knew this global pandemic was going to happen and people would be off work for multiple months.
You know, but they have a contract. They have a contract, and they have to be able to rely on a contract no matter what happens. This is unpredictable. And I think we pay the contract, and we don't take anything away from them. Nothing.
And I see your side, Nicole.
What?
I completely agree with you, and I see your side. And to be honest with you, I was leaning that way. Coming into this is like, you know, come on. We've been paying this whole throughout this whole ordeal. 2 days seems like a fair compromise. Mm-hmm. However, on the flip side, this is the exact reason why there's so much hesitation when the district says, well, what difference does it make if it's in the contract or the handbook? We'll just put it in the handbook and it'll be okay. It's not a big deal. This is why that stuff becomes a big deal. And I think I'm leaning with Jeff here to where I agree with you that everybody would be okay with it, but yeah, I'm leaning towards honoring the agreements that have been signed.
And the other thing, this wouldn't be a conversation if it was in a master contract, because the board would have to do whatever it says. So that's the flexibility that there is in a handbook. So when circumstances like this come up, we can have these conversations and make changes if need be. If it's in a master contract, you can't, you're stuck, you're in a binding document that you can't shift or adjust. So, I mean, I'm understanding and hearing what you guys are all saying. I guess I have enough, I trust in the employee group, and I think they're all understanding at this point. But maybe I'm wrong. I would think they completely understand. They've all been getting paid, and I know many people are very appreciative of that.
I don't think we should have to make them understand. I think we need to pay them.
My only concern is it is at least $55,000. So it is $55,000 plus whatever the associates is going to be, right, John? Is that what I'm hearing?
And
Yeah.
teachers and teachers,
Right.
secretaries, associates. So you have the whole pool.
And that's money that we had not budgeted to spend. And so I mean, I understand, and I agree with what everybody's saying. My hesitation is that's a lot of unbudgeted money.
Isn't that money budgeted? I mean, we plan on them taking 2 days a year. Do we not budget for that?
The incentive piece was new, and I just pointed out the budget estimate for it would have been based on only about 25% of personal days remaining, because most staff would have taken them during this March through June time period. So since we've been closed during the March through June time period, most people have not taken their personal days. So we're going to have a lot more to pay out for an
But you would
incentive.
have had to
But
pay
if
the
what I'm
part-time
saying,
sub, right?
what I'm saying though is if a teacher is planning on taking a personal day in March, and let's say this has never happened, we haven't been in this crisis. I mean, if a teacher takes a day off, we got to pay a sub, right?
Sometimes.
So we budget for that, I hope.
Yeah. We budget for the substitutes, and we're going to be way under on substitutes because of the March through May closure.
Because we haven't paid them because they haven't been able to take them. That's why.
Yeah.
So the money's budgeted.
Here's the thing. We're asking them to step up to the plate, but the district doesn't want to step up to the plate. I'm sorry. Everybody has to do their fair share. This was in a contract. They deserve to get paid.
I guess my thing, too, and like I said, I'll go back to, I understand why we shouldn't, but on the flip side, we put them in a handbook. We gave them something they've never had before, is what we found out tonight, which is an incentive to not use your days. And now we want to take it away before they ever got to have that incentive. That doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense, because now we convinced them to take it out of their contract. We'll give you something for it, but now we're taking it away before you get to use it.
It was never a piece, you guys, in their contract. We incentivized it as a district. We proposed it to try to get people to be at work to not take their days. It wasn't their proposal. It was our proposal. Okay.
I know, but we're also the ones that want to take it away.
Only because we've given them how many days off work, 2.5 months by the end of the school year is what we're saying.
Well, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Nicole, you're making the argument to not pay them. I'm making the argument to pay them.
And it's the board's decision, so you guys can table it or you can vote on it and proceed.
Nicole, are you saying this? Nicole, are you saying this wasn't in their contract in the past? This is a new thing in the handbook just this year?
That is accurate. We added it as an incentive as a district office to try to get people to come and stay at work and not to take all their days off, because we know when we have staff currently working in their positions, we have better results, whether it's teachers or secretaries or associates. So we added that incentive for people to not use them, to have them be here instead of a sub or no sub at all. It was our idea. I'm not taking credit. I think it was, I don't know, John's, Terry's, but it was the district's idea.
And I guess to Jeff's point, we're not saying no, don't pay people. Everybody's being paid. They're not working as much as they have been, and they're still being paid. Everybody is being paid to take personal time at home for 3 months.
So
I mean, I don't
guess-
know, maybe
Yep,
we
go
want
ahead.
to table this, but do we want to break it apart? I don't want to make it too complicated, but do we need to break it apart by different employee groups? Because how much opportunity has, I'll just use a secretary, for example, how much opportunity has the secretary really had to work since March 16th compared to a teacher? You could make the argument that teachers have had more, I don't know, I don't want to pit employee groups against each other necessarily, but the time that has been available to them at home to do their own personal things aren't exactly consistent either.
I don't think we need to table this, and if we need a motion, I'll make a motion, Dave, if everybody's done talking.
Well, you can make a motion and we can still have discussion. So if you want to make a motion,
But
you can.
we're going to be in the same place next discussion.
I don't know that there's a lot more
I
going to
think
come
we
out
will.
that we don't already have to talk about.
I agree. I don't know what, I don't know what the tabling's to accomplish a whole lot.
Yeah, it's just going to delay the decision.
Correct.
Nicole, have we reached out to any of the associations and asked them what they thought of this proposal? Have we heard from anybody beside us?
No. I can
Okay.
do that if you want me, but of course, I mean,
Well, I can tell you, I've already been contacted a couple times today about it, and that's why I would like to find some common ground, But if we vote on it tonight, I'm okay with that too.
so what's your suggestion for common ground, Jeremy?
Well, I mean, can we give them an extra day next year? Can we, pay them out for 1 day instead of 2? So it's just not an all or nothing. Maybe we pay them for 1 and give them an extra day next year if they have 2. The money's budgeted. I understand that right now that number's higher because we haven't had people using them, but that just means we haven't had substitutes either. So we're probably setting good in that line item, I would guess.
And I would think we've saved money in other areas too, that we budgeted for but didn't spend.
So I'm okay. I'm okay with moving forward with it as it is tonight too, but.
So I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and pay the groups for their personal leave.
So what the action item is to waive the personal leave payout. So if you want to
So we need a motion to not waive it, correct?
Well, or if you want to do a
Or
motion
just
and
not
a
that
second,
we move
and then
it.
vote it down, that'll accomplish the same thing, and it'll just leave it as is.
Right.
I'll make a motion that we waive personal leave payout for the year.
Say that again. We waive personal leave payout?
You want to be
Yeah,
don't waive or you want waive?
I'm just saying waive so that we can vote against it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
I see what you're
Right.
saying.
Wait.
If you're not in favor of waiving, vote no.
If you're not in,
Or
No,
It's on the agenda to waive personal leave for the year, which is what we've been arguing. If you think no, pay them their personal days, you would vote no to that.
got it.
Got it.
So I have
Or
a
it could just
motion.
die for lack of a second and then it goes nowhere and we're done.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? So all in favor, Morgan Brown,
Purely for the sanctity of the handbook, no.
Jeff Bittner,
No.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
I agree with Morgan for the sanctity of the handbook, no.
Brian Jones. Brian? If we lost Brian, Jeremy Weller,
No.
and David Wildbrenner is a no, echoing Morgan and Nancy. And Brian is
I'm not.
He
gone.
gone.
He's very upset. No, I'm teasing. All right. So we will move on.
Hey, I lost connection. Did you get me?
Is that a yes or a no?
No.
Thank you. The motion carries as an, or does not carry, so. Driver's education is next on the list. Everybody has that information in front of them. It looks pretty. Any questions on that?
Scott did have one particular question that he asked to be addressed. I didn't quite understand it, but I don't know if we need to formally answer that question.
Yeah, is that the one at the bottom asking about bidding in the future?
Yeah, I think it sounded like he was asking like if he would be excluded in the future if he went ahead and did the driver's ed, because he is a private business and he can do it privately on his own.
Yeah, when I read that, I thought to myself, I don't know why that would exclude you from bidding in the future, but.
No, I agree.
You don't have the question?
No, I didn't. I
Oh,
see it there.
yeah.
I see it. And we actually, he's still included in our
Yeah,
proposal. We sent an RFP out for driver's ed services for the next year and we didn't exclude anybody, so.
Okay.
and that question that Christina's talking about is listed on the bottom there, right from Scott, so.
Yep. So do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve.
Second, Jones.
Further discussion? All in favor, Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
Yes.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
Yes.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller,
Yes.
David Wildbrenner is a yes. Personnel report,
Make a motion, we approve the personnel report as is presented.
Second, Bittner.
Second. Oh,
okay, got a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
Yes.
Christina Shark,
Yes.
Nancy Manson,
yes.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller,
Yes.
David Wildbrenner is a yes. Board member topics. Anybody have anything they want to discuss?
Well, I know that we missed the deadline, but I think we all got the same question regarding foreign language. Is that something that we can talk about now, or would it be better to address it at a future board meeting?
I'm getting some data to send you guys. So I don't have a lot of answers anyway right now, but I'll be able to get you some information that you can look at and I'll put it on the next board meeting agenda if that works.
That's fine.
Thank you for asking.
And Nicole, remind me, what's the timeline? I know that you have to return to the Department of Ed by July 1st, the plan for what happens in August. What's our involvement with that, or how does that process work?
So we just got the plan from the Department of Ed on Friday. We met as directors this morning. I think we're gonna put out a general survey to all of Ottumwa, anybody that has the Ottumwa schools, just to get some feedback. We'll be working with the principal team, we'll be working with DLT team, but there's 7 large components to be broken down. And there's a 40-page document with guidance on steps and pieces to put in place. So today was the first day we did a lot of digging in. Some of this weekend was more of that research, but we'll be updating the board from this period out on where we are with that plan and the communication timeline and who's all involved in the process. It will take a lot of staff. It will take like custodial, have buildings and grounds for some of the safety pieces. It will take some of our nursing staff. So there's just a lot of components that will be involved. So there'll be a lot of staff that will be giving feedback. And we'll use the platform of that district leadership team with some OEA representatives as well to kind of look over pieces once we have them created. And we'll be doing those 3 models like I talked about at the beginning. So we'll be doing the full virtual that is required. We'll do the hybrid model, and we'll be doing the face-to-face.
Do you have to submit a plan that addresses all 3, or do you submit one?
You need to address all 3, but it's not going to be the 40-page document that they've given us. Those are plans just for the district to keep in place to know how to roll out, but there'll be a simple thing on CASA on the Department of Education portal to be able to submit as a district. And today we submitted was due the CARES Act funds that we got to help support whatever the needs are for that return to learn plan. So we're embedding what those needs are and those expenses with what the plan will look like to roll out. So one of the things, we'll have to have devices in the hands of all kids for required online learning. And we're moving forward trying to work with the city and potentially even the county on what it would look like to have internet access availability, high-speed internet for all families and everybody that lives in the Ottumwa area.
Any other board member topics? Don't have anything. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move, Bittner.
Second, Brown.
All in favor, Morgan Brown,
Yes.
Jeff Bittner,
Yes.
Christina Shark,
Yep.
Nancy Manson,
Yes.
Brian Jones,
Yes.
Jeremy Weller, Jeremy,
Jeremy went away.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes.
David Wildrenner's a yes.